Hello everyone, and welcome to the Config and Tech video for Resident Evil 2 Remake. Get my notes and my folder view option open here. In this video, we will be setting up Resident Evil 2 Remake, general settings and advanced where needed. This will hopefully put the game in the best playable state it can be. Any links that are covered in this video will be in the description of the video. This folder view, this is the main install folder for the game. Not everything is shown here. None of this really matters for this video. This will pertain more in the modding video. It's just here to have something on the other side of the screen, but we won't actually be manipulating any of this stuff in this video. So I want to start with preliminary setup explanation. RTX ray tracing. I'll provide a Wikipedia link to ray tracing in the description of the Config and Tech video. So ray tracing is a rendering technique that can realistically simulate the lighting of a scene and its objects by rendering physically accurate reflections, refractions, shadows, and indirect lighting. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060 and above support this feature. I can't speak for AMD GPUs as I've never owned one. Expect a big FPS or frame rate loss in any game using this feature. I have an NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super, but I won't be using this feature due to FPS loss and wanting to set all other graphics settings higher overall. This leads right into the next topic I want to go over. So RTX update and non-RTX update. When you install RE2 Remake on Steam, you will be given the version with RTX ray tracing available. They patched this into the game as well as RE3 Remake and RE7 as well. This version broke almost all the existing mods that were made before the RTX update. This naturally caused an uproar in the community because not everyone cared about using ray tracing or over their mods. So at some point Capcom relented and released the previous version that you can downgrade to if you want to use some of the older mods that aren't updated to support the RTX version. In the RTX update and the non-RTX update, you have access to both DirectX 11 and DirectX 12 APIs. To use ray tracing, you are required to use the RTX update and run it under RTX 12, or DirectX 12, excuse me. RTX is an FPS drain and you aren't going to notice it much in RE2 Remake anyway. Remember, RTX was put in this game as an afterthought, and it isn't implemented well. If you have a 40 series NVIDIA GPU or above, then crank it up and smile. As far as DirectX 11 or DirectX 12, in my experience in testing, DirectX 12 didn't make the game look any better, and it's not going to. It's more about how it handles its processes and rendering of the game, from my understanding, in the background. DirectX 12, for me, caused more general memory usage, and more memory usage on my GPU too. Some people say they get game crashes using DirectX 12. You'll just need to experiment between the two options and compare your data findings. DirectX 11 is going to be more stable for most people regarding this game. I would say to use DirectX 11 unless you want RTX ray tracing. Even if you are not using RTX ray tracing, I still recommend DirectX 11. My playthrough will be using non-RTX update with DirectX 11. For those of you who wish to use older non-RTX mods, I will quickly show you how to downgrade to the non-RTX update in Steam. I'm starting to put these here just as a reminder that this is a breakpoint to actually show you something else. So that's mainly here for me more than it is for you. So I already got Steam open here, and I've got my active YouTube folder here that I work out of. And I have two Resident Evil 2s listed here because this one is the actual game. This one is too, but it's a custom, it's one I went in and add a game and add a non-Steam game, because this one I have linking to the mod manager program that I use to actually run the game, so that I can put my mods in and then run the game from there. And I'll show that, what that means and everything in the modding video, because it pertains to that, not this video. But you go to your main Resident Evil 2 game here, and you right click it. You go down to properties, and it's going to open up another screen here. You want to go to betas, and in beta participation, select the beta you would like to opt into. You're going to have this drop down menu over here, and you're going to have none, or you're going to have DX11_non -RT dash the same thing. So basically, if it was on none, which it will be when you first install the game, that means you have the RTX ray tracing update version. But if you want to use the non-RTX ray tracing version, then you need to select this DirectX 11_non -RT. This does not mean that you're only going to get the game in DirectX 11. You can still play it in DirectX 12 if you want. This is just what they called it from Capcom. So this is the way you downgrade to that previous version. If you're running on the non or the RTX ray tracing update, then a lot of mods that you're going to be looking at are not going to work or be problematic. Because most mods, were made for this game back when it first came out. And when it first came out, it, didn't have this update. So that's all you got to do. And I want to mention something else in here. If you look under installed files, just because this is good general information, you'll see an option in here for backup game files. Create a backup of the installed files to restore this game in the future. So this is a way to download a game that you've digitally purchased from Steam, but physically back it up. So that you have the physical files. That's how you can do that per game that you own. And the next thing I want to show is verify this game's files are installed correctly. Verify integrity of game files. So anytime you do anything, if you're messing with configuring or reconfiguring a game or mods, sometimes you get into situations where an original file gets replaced and you want it back, or because of the modding you've done, it's messed your game up so much that you can't even get it to run anymore. All you need to do is come in here and click Verify Integrity of Game Files. Anything, it scans your files, and anything that it finds that is not the default or normal, it will re-download and overwrite and replace. If you've made any custom folders in a game, like my mod stuff or whatever, and put a bunch of stuff in there, it won't remove that just because it doesn't belong originally. It'll leave that alone. But anything else, it'll re-download just that. You don't have to uninstall the game and re-download it or make a backup of the entire game before you start trying to mod it, just so you have something to pull back from. Just verify the integrity, and it will fix everything for you. So that covers that. Go back here. So I just wanted to mention that because it's a very important thing, that there's two versions of the, I wanted to explain to you what ray tracing is. It does make games look better that it's implemented in well, but it does cause an FPS strain. And in the case of Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, and Resident Evil 7, there was a lot of mods that don't work anymore whenever they released these ray tracing updates. So it's important for you to understand what it does and what it is, and then the fact that you can go and downgrade, because most games don't let you do this, but Capcom did it because of the community demand for it. So that covers really all I want to show there. The next section here is the in-game options. Normally I like to list all the game options in a description here in the notepad document. In the case of this game having a lot of detailed settings, I'd rather just go into the game to show, explain, and recommend what to use. So I'm going to do a quick edit cut here in this video, and we'll go over the in-game settings. In the next video, we'll go over the modding stuff that there is for this game. So thanks for watching and listening to all this, and I will see you in the game. Hello everybody, welcome to the in-game portion of Resident Evil 2 Remake, where I'm going to run down all of the options and settings that the game offers with you and do my best to help recommend good options to not only get you good performance, but get you good quality as well, at least in my experiences and what I know. So we'll click Start Game, get to the main menu here. Let's go directly into the options screen. And this is what you'll be presented with. Controls, camera, display, audio, language, graphics, Resident Evil Net, and default. And I'm just going to run down everything with you here. I've already got everything configured for how I'm going to play and use the game. So don't take anything I say or show here as gospel on being the best settings or the optimal settings or anything like that. I do have experience, but you know, nobody knows everything. I'm just giving you what I think is correct and what works for me. So controls, we'll start there first. First option is control settings. This will just give you a rundown of the gamepad controls. And you have a type A, a type B, a type C, and that's it. Type A probably being the generalized setting. Looks like from A to B it just changes what B does and what the left stick does. So quick turn is left stick plus B on A, but on B it's left stick down, no, left stick plus left stick down or something. It's kind of weird. Or you can have switch ammo or run on left stick and right mouse button be switch ammo or run. It's up to you, but A is probably the standard. I don't play these games with a gamepad as much as I can. I avoid it because I'm not someone who plays first-person shooters or third-person shooters. Basically any games where you have to aim a reticle on like target. I don't play games like that with a gamepad. I always use mouse and keyboard. So I couldn't really recommend what you should use here, but A is probably the best place to start. So moving on. Key bindings. I'll run down these in the actual gameplay video, the first one, because I like to cover the controls while I'm actually in control of the character. But you can see what the controls are here briefly. I'll run through them and you can see what my keybinds are, not that they matter. Because as you can see, for movement keys I don't use WSAD, I use the arrow keys. So that's going to make all of my other key bindings automatically different and weird from what everybody else is going to use, because I in turn use the arrow keys for movement and I use the number pad portion of my keyboard for most of my other key binds. So my key bindings don't matter, but you can see what they are. And there's a bunch of them. But I'll cover all this in the first gameplay video. This is where you would adjust your key bindings for keyboard and mouse users. Run type, you can either hold the button to run or be a toggle where you press it, keep running as long as you want, and then press it again. I generally like hold to run, especially since I'm using a keyboard. I just feel like I have better control, so I'd rather let go of a button I'm already pressing than have to press it again if it's not already being pressed, I guess. Mouse buttons, normal or switch. This is basically just switching the left and right mouse buttons around. So if you want to make your right mouse click be your left click, you can do that. It's not inverting mouse movement, it's inverting left mouse and right mouse buttons. cursor lock, turn the function that stops the mouse cursor going out on the window on and off. They give you a little description down at the bottom. So it just keeps the cursor within the confinements of the screen, which I recommend. Auto reload, set auto reload when your clip is empty, on or off. So when you run out of ammo and you try to shoot, it'll automatically put you in the reload animation. I just advise it. I'm a OCD reloader, habitual reloader anyway in these kinds of games, so, but it's a nice quality of life function, I guess. When aiming, decel or reticle deceleration, adjust how much the reticle slows down when it's over a target. I have this set all the way to basically none or off. That may not even be a 0 value, but I think it is. That feels better to me using a mouse to do my aiming, but I can see, I think that's mainly for probably people using gamepad to help you with getting headshots, because what follows right after is other gamepad controls, being aim assist, which usually if a game's recognizing you're using a mouse to play, it won't even let you use this option because aim assist is considered to be a gamepad option. And it's a helper, but it's kind of a cheat. But you kind of need it if you're playing with gamepad, so I don't know. I'd be curious. It'd be interesting to know, I guess, based on most people being gamepad users probably, is how many people use aim assist when they play with a gamepad versus not using it. I don't know because I'm not a gamepad user, as I mentioned, so even if I can turn this on, I always leave it off because I don't want the game helping me aim. And I already have good aim control because I'm using a mouse over a gamepad. But if you're playing with a gamepad and you have trouble, then you definitely would want to mess with these options to make aiming easier. And then controller vibration, yeah, if I was using the controller I would leave it on, but I just preemptively always turn it off if I'm not using a gamepad in a game, so it's off. So that covers the controls. And we'll press escape to get back out. Now the next settings will be under camera. So camera inversion, normal gameplay, or when aiming, none, or y-axis, x-axis, y-axis, and y-axis. So this will change your movement. So on the thumbstick, if you press up, instead of it going down, it'll go up. Or if you press the thumbstick up, it'll go down, and vice versa with the mouse movement. And I don't want to use that, so I have it off. Here's where you can adjust the field of view that the game is using. As already mentioned, and I will bring it up here again. Under camera of RE framework, you would have to use custom global FOV on in the checkbox, and then you can change it further. But essentially this value of it being in the middle, this is controller. Mine would be, or no, yeah, FOV. We're talking about FOV. This being in the middle is actually represented by the value of 81. That is the default that you're looking at. So if you want to bring this further, so if you put this all the way to max, whatever that value is, and you wanted to go higher, then you would need to use RE framework to do so and push this as high as you want it to go. So I just wanted to point that out again. I'm going to leave the FOV in the middle, just at default. I think it's fine, and it's fine for my purposes of gameplay and to be in the middle, but there's people that will want to probably not lower it any further, but will probably want to bring it out more, and that's fine. You know, people have different setups, but I'm going to default it on the middle and not use the option in RE framework. Then you have controller sensitivity and mouse sensitivity here, just how sensitive you want the movements to be, the controlling movement of your mouse or your left stick, actually your right stick with the gamepad. I just put it in the middle for the controller because I'm not going to be using it. And my settings here are what I picked. I have the mouse movement, third line from the left. And then when aiming, I have second line from the left. You can see their positioning. But don't go by this either, because it depends on your mouse that you're using, and depending on what your DPI level your mouse is set at is using. I think I'm using 800 DPI by default on my Razer mouse, and using this felt good for me. So a little more control when I'm just normal gameplay, and then when I aim, a little slower, so that I have more control. And then camera wobble, set camera wobble during character movement on and off. I left this on. Some people won't want it. It's kind of equivalent to what they call head bob in first-person games, whenever your character looks like they're kind of moving their head side to side, like you would be when you're moving fast in real life. Your head would move side to side, but they're calling it camera wobble here because it's third person. So that's really just preference there. Alright, display. HDR mode. Mine is off and grayed out because I don't have a television that has HDR. Mine's a 1080p 43-inch Vizio. I think it's a D series Vizio. It's like it's outdated tech at this point, but it's what I got. If you get any kind of a decent 4K television today, you'll get HDR in it most likely, so put that on, definitely, I would say, if you have the ability. Brightness, when you click this, you'll be put through 3 screens here. Sorry if this is blinding you, it's blinding me. Adjust value until the pattern is just barely visible. This is very important that you do this, and do not leave this at default. Make sure you do this according to your setup and how you see things. It only takes a minute, and it makes a world of difference. If the game's way too bright, it's going to be washed out and look terrible, and if it's too dark, you're going to get killed, not find items you need to loot and pick up, that kind of stuff. It's going to make it harder. So you want to adjust this until it's just barely visible. There's like a checker chessboard. A gray shade of block and a white shade, and you just barely want to see it. You may not see it at all based on my video setup here that I'm recording, and you may see too much of it, but it's because we have different setups. So don't think that my setup is wrong because it doesn't look correct on your screen. It's because I'm going by how it looks on my screen. So set this up according to your screen, but for me, I did it what did I decide on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, from the middle point, I counted off 5 clicks to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or all the way to the right, and then 5 clicks to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that looks fine to me, so then I click my confirm button. And that, what did that call it? That was called maximum brightness. The next one is called minimum brightness. And the same thing, but you get a dark pattern. And I did the same thing. 5 to the right from the center, or if you're all the way to the right, then 5 to the left from all the way to the right. Same as the last one. And the same. And now you go to brightness, and this says adjust value until the picture on the left disappears. Please check your max min brightness, the settings we just did. If the picture on the left won't disappear. Adjust while facing the screen head-on. Now you might also need to adjust your television brightness, contrast, gamma, whatever settings you have, because a lot of people do not calibrate their televisions either. They buy them from the store and they just use them right out of the box like they are. They may not configure anything, which is something you shouldn't do either. And a lot of times the presets that are in televisions are not correct either. It's usually always best to learn a little bit about TV and video calibration and then do your own manual custom adjustment based on what you think to be correct and then your tastes, you know, what you think looks the best for you. So I advise that. you know, basically on your television, your brightness, gamma, contrast, put it in the middle, you know, to start with. So for me, I put this in the middle here in the game between dark and brighter. I'll show you here so you can see. It's basically a typewriter. I think that's what that is, on both sides. But they want you to adjust it in the way that the one on the left is just barely visible, or like it's completely, it says the picture on the left disappears. I have it a little bit higher than maybe it should be, but it's barely visible, so I put it in the middle. Okay, so that covers brightness. Just take the time to play around with your brightness in the settings here and to look at your television's brightness to get the best out of it. Next, display area. Please adjust the rectangular area to match the size of your screen. You basically want to see those four corner lines completely visible. If it's screwed up, well, no, it's not. Like if it's way down here, you know, that's wrong. You're going to have black all around your whole picture of the game when you're playing. Basically hold it up, you know, increase it all the way as far as it'll go, and then it will fill the screen, which it will be by default, or press R and it will reset it. Then the next thing you have is reticle settings, and you have reticle color. This is the color of the reticle for your gun that you'll shoot. And you have different options here. You can use white, red, blue, and green. I don't remember what the default actually is, but I find the white to be the most visible. Actually, no, not the, that's the crosshair. Well, actually, okay, this is a laser dot sight. Okay, yeah, so I find that to be the most visible, so I'm using white. And then change the color of the laser dot sight for your gun. I like red, blue, green, and white. I picked red on that one. But you could also pick white, too, to make it more visible. But if the reticle's lined up, the dot sight is going to be lined up. So I think I didn't want them both to be white. That's the only reason. I might experiment with that when we're playing the game. Tutorial's on, whether the tutorial text is on or off. I want it on to start with. HUD, set the in-game HUD, heads-up display elements on or off. So you can turn the HUD on or off through here, but you can also do that through, I believe, is it under graphics? Yeah, hide HUD. So you can do it through RE Framework as well. But it looks like you can do it through the game. And then color space, adjust the color to suit your monitor setup, sRGB and REC 709. Depending on your setup and everything in which you choose, you might want to play around with this. For my setup, I'm finding the REC 709 makes things way too dark, like way dark. sRGB is probably the standard and more considered the norm. It's the default setting anyways, so I would say just leave it on sRGB unless you know better than me, then change it. But this is too dark for me, so I'm not going to be using that. So that's display. The next is audio. You got voice volume, BG, background music volume, and sound effects volume. And for this, I'm just going to max everything out. In a lot of games, I will put the background music to the midpoint, say, just to hopefully keep it from drowning out talking in the game, everything, you know, else that happens. But this game's audio is good and mixed well enough, so I don't think we'll have any problem with that. Dynamic range, this is another one of those options that's debatable. It says adjust volume range to match your surroundings. So you have small and large. Sorry if you're hearing background noise. My room's right next to the kitchen. So I'm leaving it on large so that I can just get a bigger, fuller sound. I'm using 7.1 surround headset. I played with this a little bit in testing previously, in different times I've played this game, and I feel like the larger sound option gave it a fuller sound. So I don't know how this really will pertain to using like external speakers, but I always play games with headset. And then, as I mentioned, my headset's 7.1 surround, so I'm putting it on 7.1. But you have TV display, headphones, Dolby Atmos, and then 7.1 surround sound. TV display is going to be stereo, left and right, and headphones. I tested this as well, and there is a difference. You might automatically assume that this just means your headphones, whether they're stereo headphones or whether they're 7.1 Razer headset. But I think headphones being mentioned here the way they are, this could just mean stereo headphones. Hence the reason why I advise you to pick 7.1 surround sound if you have a surround system and if you have surround headphones. Don't pick the headphones option. Real-time binaural toggle the function that reproduces 3D audio on and off. I'm leaving this on. I may not even be benefiting from this based on my headphones. I'm not sure, but it's not going to hurt anything. If it's not something that's going to be to my benefit, it just won't work, I'm assuming, but I would say leave it on. And then music sound effects version, you can either pick the original music sound effects from the original game back in the 90s, or you can pick the remake 2019 music sound effects. I think you have to purchase this as DLC, actually. I don't think this is included in the game by default. But for the sake of the remake, I'm going to use the remake's stuff. I will also mention that there is a vast difference between them. They are different. This is remade music, not just... Don't think of it as remastered original music. It's remade music. And I would categorize it this way, that the remake's music is set up to be more ambient, or ambient, however you want to say it. Is that the way to say it? It could be the opposite. Maybe it's the original that is that way. The original music is more ambient, and the remakes is more kind of like background music, like music. So one is going to give you more... It's hard to describe. It's not that either one's worse. It's not that either one's bad. One just is more of kind of a mood-setting music, whereas the other is just like, kind of game music. So you'll have to experiment, but I'm going to be using Remake. But definitely experiment. I would say the first time you play the game ever, use the Remake, and then go back through on your second playthrough. Like, that's what I did. I did the Remake when I first played Leon, and then when I went back and played the Claire B, I switched it to original or something. Or you could just go, play the original game and hear the original music. Anyway, that's audio. Language is where you can select the voice language to use and the display language shown, and then whether you want subtitles on or off. So you get English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, and Russian and Polish, and Brazilian, Portuguese. Korean, you get more language display options than you do voice options. So I'm going to be doing English on both and then subtitles on. And then I'm going to skip graphics since it's the... that's just a warning the game shows. Don't worry about it. The RENet, completely free service that gives you a deeper look into the RE universe, send your play data, game progress, and IP address, blah 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 blah. I never do this and would never really advise to do this, and I would actually tell you to go in here and under RENet play data settings, I would turn that off so that it's not transmitting your private data of whatever kind that you're just allowing Capcom to pull from you. So I just don't trust these things and don't ever use them. So off it is. Default will reset everything, all of these options that you've adjusted back to their defaults. So the big major one here that we're going to finish off here on is graphics. And graphics will give you presets to start with. Recommended, max, graphics priority, balanced, and performance priority. And it tells you here. Set options based on available graphics memory. Set options to the maximum possible values without taking into account the impact on performance. Prioritize graphical quality, but increases the demands on your system. Recommended graphics memory 8 gigabytes plus on your memory card. Balance, the balance between performance and graphical quality. Recommend graphics card memory 2.7 gigabytes to 8 gigabytes. And then performance priority, maintain decent graphical quality while minimizing the demands on your system. Recommended graphics memory 2.7 gigabytes or less. I don't recommend using any of these. I recommend manually configuring it yourself. That is the best option. And that's not to be funny, it's to be serious. Presets are never a good thing because it's always somebody else's ideal of a preset. They're good starting points, but it's usually good to start with everything off or at 0 or at base level and then work it on up from there based on, you know, obviously learning what settings do and, you know, looking at your numbers, looking at your frame rate and your temperatures and your memory usage and all that stuff, and make your own decisions about how to configure your game. Use it as a reference point or a source of knowledge to get to a better customized setting, I would say. So don't worry about presets. Graphics API. I think that stands for Application Programming Interface. I think that makes sense anyway, but it may not stand for that. But anyway, whenever people talk about API, they're talking about either DirectX or OpenGL or Vulkan. Those are considered graphic APIs. The most common you're going to see is DirectX. In most modern games now, it's probably going to be 12, but you'll probably still see some DirectX 11 games. And of course, the older games are going to be lower, you know, DirectX 9, DirectX 8, etc. So, as been discussed, I'm using the non-RTX or ray tracing update for this game for my playthrough. But that update or the RTX update, they both give you the option for DirectX 11 or 12. It's not like if you have the non-RTX update that you don't get ray tracing, which you don't, but that you're stuck with only DirectX 11 because you aren't. You can use DirectX 12. And if you have the RTX update, you get DirectX 11 and 12 like normal, but then you also get the benefit of turning on the ray tracing ability and whatever options it has, which I won't be showing because I'm not using that version of the game. But I would definitely advise you to use DirectX 11 in this game. It was meant and designed for that. DirectX 12 was just put in at the end and not tested extremely well, implemented well, or optimized well. It's no knock against Capcom. I mean, it is to a point, but they included it, so, you know, at least there's that. It's there. But in my testing on a 2070, you can see my card and readings here. On a 2070 RTX Super, my G memory, which is my graphics card memory, and my C memory, which is my computer's memory. I have 8 gigs on my graphics card, and I have 32 gigs on my computer. But when I used DirectX 12, it made my G memory and my C memory higher. Not by astronomical amounts, but it did make the graphics card memory go up a good chunk. It didn't necessarily make my frame rate any worse, but I didn't test it too far. I just didn't like that it was increasing my memory usage the way that it did. And it did in turn make my G and C temps go up a little as well, which is also in turn, going to make your G fan speed percentage and your G graphics card usage percentage go up. So it doesn't affect the graphics. DirectX 11 or 12 is not going to make the graphics look better. It's more of the behind the scenes, how the background processes work of the game, how those things are handled and processed, how quickly and efficiently and so forth. Which, by all standards in a game that's built upon and for DirectX 12, yes, you would want to use DirectX 12 as it should give you the best, the best performance and quality. And also I would say this is coming from using an RTX 2070. If you have a 4070 or a 4090 or whatever NVIDIA's got out now, go ahead and use DirectX 12. But for me, I want certain numbers to be certain ranges. I want good frame rate, and I want good quality, good control, quality and control of the game. People have mentioned a lot of crashing with DirectX 12 and more stuttering, things like that. So my advice is to use DirectX 11. And then I always run my games in full screen mode, just because I've always been told and thought and presumed that you get the most frame rate you're going to get by using full screen mode. And I'm running in 1080p, not 4K, so that's my resolution. Rendering mode, the nice thing that they did in Resident Evil 2 onward here, Resident Evil 2 Remake onward, is they give you these little thumbnail pictures showing you an example of basically a screenshot of the game, but when you change settings, it reflects it. The only problem with this is the image isn't large enough on the screen. I think they needed to restructure the layout of the options screen here to make that image be able to be bigger. That's the only complaint I got. I like that they've included something here that changes and that you can see. So you have rendering mode normal or interlaced. Normal is basically progressive scan or progressive mode, and I interlaced, with normal being better. You can kind of see the fidelity change a little more in a negative way when it's on interlaced in the picture. If you look at when I switch between here, the quality of the image. And you can also see the processing load goes down and the image quality goes down because you're getting less quality on interlaced. If you're trying to gain frame rate and all that, do it elsewhere in the settings. Don't try as hard as you can at all possibility to keep this on rendering mode normal. Okay, and then image quality. This is basically like a scaling option. I don't know what it says, so change the resolution scaling factor. I don't know what method they're using for scaling, but it's here. It'll go all the way down to 50 and all the way up to 200. And as you can see, it changes the image quality drastically based on where it's set. So even at 100%, which I think is the default, going from 100% to 150 boosted up a fair amount. And then going from that all the way to 200 is going to go even higher. If you look, there's a red number there. Right now it says 9.99 gigabyte / 7.82 gigabyte. The 7.82 is what memory, GPU graphic card memory the game thinks I have, and it's more or less close. I have 8 gigs. And then the red number is reflecting what it thinks I will be using based on the settings I'm telling it to use. But a problem that's always been a problem with this game, and I think Resident Evil 3 suffers from it as well, it's a known issue, is that the graphics memory usage the game thinks is not really reflective of what's being used. If you look right now, I'm only using 2.6 gigs of graphic memory. Of course, I'm not in the game yet either. I'm just in the menu, so that doesn't really matter. I need to show you my graphic memory usage in the game. But see, the game thinks I'm using 9.87 right now, and I won't even be using that much in the game at all when we do get in the game. So don't go by that entirely, because it's not accurate. But what I did, or what I decided to do, was I think 100 was the default. I bumped it up to 150. If you're doing 4K and trying to get like 120 FPS and all of that stuff and running DirectX 12, you might not be able to put your image quality at 150 or something. You might have to put it at 100. But the fact that I'm only shooting for 1080p resolution gives me room to push my settings higher and still maintain the 60 FPS that I'm shooting for. So I would say lower this if you can't keep some of the other settings that we'll talk about here higher. But I think 100 is the default. But it doesn't go up by much, because it says I'm using 964 and then says I'll be using 987, so it is more usage, but it does really improve the image quality, at least according to this scaling here. Next thing, the next two actually, is refresh rate and frame rate, which reflect the same thing. Basically, the hertz that your television is refreshing at, and then the frame rate, they need to match. So I have a 60 hertz screen and I want 60 FPS. So if you have a 120, which I just flipped it to like 23, I don't know why you'd want to use that. I think 60 is the highest you can go, unless you can go higher only if your television's capable. But anyways, I'm going for 60 FPS, so those need to match. VSync on, turn monitor refresh rate and frame rate synchronization on and off. I always use frame rate or VSync on, because I don't have a G-Sync screen that does it automatically, and I want to lock my frame rate at 60. I don't want it to go any higher, because my television is only meant for 60 hertz. So there's no point in making your graphics card work harder and the fans on your graphics card spin faster for frame rate you don't need. And locking your VSync on, your frame rate will keep you from getting the screen tearing effect that can occur. Look that up on Wikipedia if you don't know what screen tearing is, just to educate yourself on it. But it's a side effect of not locking your frame rate, and it makes the graphics look bad in a negative way. Anti-aliasing, so you get a few options here: off, FXAA, TAA, FXAA plus TAA, SMAA. So this is going to be debatable on what's the best and what you want to use. And you can barely go by this picture at the bottom here. It's too small. You need to see it in real time. But if you look here, if you have it on SMAA and you look at the circle, focus on the circle, you can see some little shiny points here. And you may think that's normal and okay, because it's reflective or whatever, but it's because the image is so small you can't tell. But if you put it on another setting like FXTAA, you can see how there's a reflection here that persists, because that's the one that should be there. These other little things you're seeing are imperfections in what you're setting it on being a lesser form of anti-aliasing than another one. So with SMAA, I was debating on this even before I did the video here, on whether I wanted to use SMAA or TAA. SMAA is going to give you a sharper, cleaner image overall, but it's also going to make the aliasing look really, really bad. just really almost as bad as not using any, basically, is what I would say. A slight increase from off, like I would say barely on, is what SMAA brings to this game. And then you have this FXAA, which I want to talk about. It's not bad, but it's not great either. As you can see, it still leaves those little imperfections down here. So SMAA off and FXAA are going to be the worst. And a bad thing about FXAA is FXAA can make text in the game that pops up, like in a letter or even possibly the subtitle font. It makes text look blurrier. So then your next best two options are FXAA plus TAA or TAA alone. And I'm opting for TAA alone because I don't like FXAA having that blur that it does. But on the side of that, TAA also blurs to an extent to do what it does. So I don't want to use two anti-aliasing effects that blur two different things. But I don't want these little artifacts either. So I'm going to use TAA, even though it does blur a little bit. So that would be my recommendation to you. I don't really mention it or talk about it much, but I'm also using NVIDIA to do sharpening of its own through NVIDIA by about 25%. Because most every single game, even games that still come out now, they are made blurry, and that is to hide low quality textures, because a lot of these games, and Resident Evil does it. It uses high quality textures in some areas and low quality textures in others. So the blurring ability is to mask a lot of low quality textures, and it's also to mask bad aliasing that games have and still have to this day. So until we get past all of this and get into like actually true high definition, you know, everything's as perfect as it can be, you're going to have to deal with give and takes on some of these options. So normally I would pick SMAA for the sharpening and less blurring effect, but it doesn't do good in this game for an anti-aliasing method. TAA is good, and like I said, I'm 25% sharpening through NVIDIA, so that's going to make it look better on my end, even further than it may for you if you play and don't do that. So TAA. Texture quality. Change the quality of object textures recommended VRAM amount. So if you have a card that is only capable of 3 gigabytes, if you only have a 3 gigabyte memory graphics card, then you definitely do not want to set it on 8 gigabytes. You need to set it according to the capacity of the RAM of your card, or lower. Mine's 8, so I'm starting with 8. The other thing with this is I believe it's, I don't remember exactly. For sure, you definitely want to be putting everything on high 4 gigabyte, but I would recommend going up to 8, depending on what your card's memory is. But anything, I've read from multiple things online, anything lower than 4 gigabytes will automatically force the game to use low texture qualities throughout the whole game, which you do not want to do. So I recommend using whatever your card is capable of, or drop it down a notch. So if you have 8 gig card, but you're really having a hard time getting 60 FPS, then drop it down to 6. So I'm using 8. Just do not use anything below 4, or it will make your textures look really terrible. This is also something that can really save you memory on your card if you're trying to put it elsewhere. This is one of the settings, along with Image quality I wouldn't put in there, but your resolution is definitely going to affect usage, memory usage on your card, and texture quality will. So now we're on to texture filtering quality. You should have no issue putting this to 16 anisotropic filtering, which is the best. So put it on 16 and move on. Mesh quality. Change the quality of polygonal meshes. This, as you can see, switching between doesn't appear to have a whole lot of graphical effect. It has a little bit, but it really doesn't affect the graphics memory usage at all. Max is something that I consider to be in effect in a lot of games they call ultra, and I'm kind of getting in the mindset these days of I just don't like using ultra or max in games, and just presume them to be probably, yes, the highest settings that you can use in the game for graphical fidelity, but probably the least optimized and play tested as well. So I'm opting to just use high for mesh quality. Shadow quality. So you have, this can affect a lot. You can see going from high to max, I go from 9.8 usage to 12.3. So you have minimum, low, medium, high. You can see how low, look at the shadows there. You can see that they do look more minimum, I should say. Yeah, minimum. Between minimum and max, you can see the degradation and shadow quality. When you look down here at the edge, see how straight it is on max, and when you switch to minimum, it starts getting jagged. So I'm opting to put this on high, but this does eat a good chunk of memory on your graphics card, so you may want to drop this to medium. Move on to shadow cache. If you have a low memory card, like something 4 gigs or under, you might want to turn this off. Anything above, just put it on. It's going to help and make everything better in the long run. In my case, it lowers graphics memory usage, but it does increase processing load. But cards with a decent amount of memory can handle this setting well, and it'll make your game optimize better and play better. So I would say put it on. There's no real graphical setting associated with it. It's just kind of how shadows are cast in the background. Contact shadows. Change the rendering of detailed shadows. So this basically will make the light casting on an object like these boxes, whether it casts its own object shadow or not. This has a next to no impact on memory usage, but it has a significant impact on the quality of lighting, whether it's on or off, making things look better. It just makes things look better, and it's not going to hurt your frame rate or anything much, so I would say leave it on. Screen space reflections, or some games will just call it SSR. It's kind of like the poor man's version of ray tracing before ray tracing. Kind of essentially ray tracing replaces screen space reflections. And it's kind of been inherent in these newer modern RE games that screen space reflections doesn't work and look well. It doesn't look well in this game, and it doesn't look well in RE3 Remake. It doesn't look well from what I remember. I think it may be called something different. Just reflections, shadows, maybe in Resident Evil 7, but it doesn't look good in that either. I'll show you what I'm talking about in this game and those games when we get to them, because I want you to see the examples so you can see what I'm talking about, why I think something is good or bad, and why you should have a setting on or off. I don't just want to say, put this setting off because it's better, and then go to the next setting. I want to show you why, so you can make up your own mind. But in this game, as you can see in the example here, yeah, it does look good. It makes those boxes have a reflection in like the wet I think this ground is slightly wet, so you can see the reflection. You're still going to see light reflections and things like that. It doesn't completely get rid of reflections, but it's like it gets rid of the real-time or baked-in reflections and reflective surfaces. So in some way or another, it does give you less of lighting quality and it does less processing load, but it's kind of less lighting quality and more or less image quality, but they're calling it lighting quality. But anyway, the effect does not look good in motion, and you can't see motion in this. I will show it to you on and off in the game in motion and show you why it doesn't look good. Otherwise, I would turn it on, but it doesn't look good in this game, and they never patched it. They never improved it or fixed it. I guess the fix is to use the ray tracing RTX update with DirectX 12 and use ray tracing, and either you won't have this option, it'll be grayed out, or you just won't be able to use it. That's the fix, but I advise to turn this off because it just doesn't look good, and you'll see why later. Subsurface scattering. Turn the effect that improves the quality of skin rendering on or off. This will affect image. It says lighting quality yet again, but I think this is more, it comes across more as a image or texture quality improvement. This doesn't affect your memory much, and it makes things look better. Turn it on, leave it on. Volumetric lighting quality. Some say that this is the most demanding setting of the game. I kind of would disagree on that, but it depends on your card, and it depends on how high you're pushing other settings. This changes the quality of volumetric lighting, so this definitely, so if it's off versus high, you can see the increase. And it's extremely noticeable in the picture. With it off, you know, it just basically goes away. And it's hard to tell much difference in between. But you can definitely tell, you know, with it off, you're not getting it. I'm putting it on high, which is its highest setting. You could probably get away with medium. You definitely could probably get away with medium and not notice much difference, but I would say try high to do it on that. Next to settings, particle lighting quality. Change the quality of particle lighting. So it's whether, like they show here in this light pole outside with rain coming down, it's whether you see those little line effects coming down in the lights from the light, whether they're there or not. See with low, they're like next to not invisible. You have low and high basically is all you get. And you also get it in the raindrops on the ground there. And they're once again saying that, you know, this is a lighting quality effect, and you can see, I keep flicking between it just so you can see the increase and the decrease in the picture and the scale line over there. This I would say put on high. Ambient occlusion, you're going to get off, SSAO, set areas only, SSAO, HDAO, and then HBAO plus. This changes the rendering of shadows cast by ambient lighting. And you can see here with it off versus HBAO plus. If you look at the lockers, it's like the outlines of straight edges and wall structures and corners and things like that. There's more of a shadow being cast. You know, that's what it does. This will have a big effect on, or can have a big effect on frame rate and just memory usage. Technically the best options for looks quality would be either HDAO, which I think is geared towards more AMD graphics card users, and then HBAO plus, which is geared towards people that are using NVIDIA cards. It's just basically the two competing methods between the two cards. So if you're using NVIDIA, use HBAO plus. If you're using AMD, use HDAO. set areas just kind of means, I don't know if that really just means cutscenes or certain big environmental areas, you know, main areas that you walk into or something, or you're in a lot. Only do it in those areas versus just doing it everywhere with SSAO. I would, if I could, I would use HBAO+, but to do other settings that I want to do and get them the way they are that I'm showing you, this was an option I was willing to come down on to gain some memory, mostly memory, back a little bit. So I'm opting to use SSAO, because if you switch here between, not really HDAO, but if you look at SSAO and then you switch and look at HBAO+, which is what I was going to use and requires more memory, if you look at them, they're both very similar. They both show the darkening inside. The HDAO actually shows less darkening. And then of course, you know, off almost looks like SDAO. It's kind of weird. But I think SSAO will look good enough for this game and give you a saving on some resources. And that's what I would advise you to use, unless, you know, this is all pertaining to me using a RTX 2070 card. If you have a 4090 or whatever, then, you know, yeah, bump it up to HBAO+. But just understand, these are not the best settings for quality or performance. It's a middle point based on the graphics card that I have. So bloom on or off, it just makes lights effects more graphical effects quality. That's kind of funny. They don't put this under a lighting quality effect, but a graphical effects. So I would use this. It'll make lights look better in the game. No graphical memory card usage issues with it. Lens flare is kind of the same way. Bloom says light bleed from bright light sources, and then lens flare is the effect that shows light scattering on the lenses on or off of objects like, you know, headlights of a vehicle. Same thing, I would leave this on for effect. And then we get to this stuff. So these last four are motion blur, depth of field, lens distortion, film noise. These are all settings I don't like or use generally. Turn blower on and off when objects move. So you can kind of see it there, even though this is a still image. It just blurs the image and makes you lose fidelity and quality, so I don't like it, so it's off. Depth of field turns the effect, they adjust focus depending on the distance of objects. So if you see behind the character there on the shelf, things get blurry or they get clear. Things get blurry or they get clear. I'd rather everything be clear and sharp, so I'm leaving that off. And then lens distortion, change the lens distortion effect. So this kind of adds a blur to lens flares or whatever, I guess is what that is implying. And there's on, off, and chromatic aberration, which is another effect on its own. Chromatic aberration that I don't like either. It's a blurring effect. All three of these are blurring effects, and I don't like anything that blurs my textures in my game. So those are all off, and then film noise is essentially film grain, the same thing. And I don't like film grain either, degrading the quality of the graphics. So these are all up to you. They don't really affect memory usage in the card. They do affect graphical fidelity, in my opinion. But it's all, you know, it's all up to you, whether you want to use these or not. This is just what I'm choosing to do. So with that, we're finally at the end of the graphics settings here. And you can see again where I'm sitting at. Granted, like I said, we're at the start menu of the game here. We're not in the game where I'm actually pushing my card yet. But those are my settings. And it shows I'm going to be using 9.8 87 gigabytes out of 7.82 gigabytes, or an 8 gigabyte card. So I'm sitting close to what the game says I'm at, which is not correct anyway. And then even in the game, I don't reach the 800 mark up here. The G memory that's at 2617 MB right now never reaches 8000 MB or 8.0 gigabytes. So as long as it doesn't reach that, then I should be fine. If it does, it'll crash my game, but I'm trying to keep it below, somewhere in the 700s, you know, mid 700s or high 700s is okay. I just don't want it to get to 8,000 or the 8,000 gigs. So I'll comb through the settings again here real quick, just because I did not write these down in my written portion of the Config and Tech video, but these are my permanent in-game final settings I'll be using. If I have to, because of frame rate issues at any point, which I don't think I'm going to have, I may back image quality down. I'll do that probably before I back off texture quality to 6 GB. I'm going to leave that on 8 GB. What else would I change? Might turn volumetric lighting to medium. Probably won't have much effect. That's really it. Image quality and texture quality. Those are about the only two I'm willing to really turn down any lower. But I shouldn't have to, and neither should you. If you have at least a 2070 Super or above, if you have above, then you can push things even higher than this. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this. I know it was a long video. It would have been even longer, though, if I did my written form version first. I decided to skip that and just come straight into the game and show you all the options. So I do apologize if this is a longer video than you were expecting it to be, but, you know, I want to cover everything a game has in the best way that I can for you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and this will end the segment. In the next video, we'll be getting into the modding that I'll be doing for this game and go over all of that. So thank you very much, and I will see you in that video. Bye.